Okay, Kelly, so we're going to talk about your kitchen written assignment. I'm going to go over the reflective statement first, then we'll look at the essay, okay? And then once you're finished, I'll post it to YouTube for you, send you the link, okay? All right, sure. So the biggest issue with your reflective statement is it's about 70 words too long. If you go over 400, they take off. Excuse me, folks. Thank you. If you go over 400, they take off 1 point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to have to cut some stuff. I think the stuff to cut would be some of the references to the story. The other thing you want to emphasize is you want to be very explicit that you talked about our interactive oral. We talked about death, right, and the modern funeral rites or how they changed. Another thing we talked about in the interactive oral was food. Something else that was described was the meaning of the characters' names. But you want to emphasize that you learned it in the interactive oral. That's the big thing, okay? And it's more on the facts that you learned rather than on your connecting those facts to the actual story. Doesn't seem like much of a difference, but with only 400 words, it's crucial that we don't go over the word count and we emphasize what you learned in the interactive oral, not necessarily the connections you made. Because the idea is that the connections you make, then we're going to get those in the actual essay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. As far as the essay goes, the most, easy typo here, but 1986, not 68. Okay, cool. And honestly, I love this quote from Confucius. I think it might be closer to your title or topic than the actual question, because that's really what is. I've looked for this idea of distortion, and aside from obviously the sex change, I don't see the distortion.
Okay.
And that's fine. I mean, it's just that we need to change your thesis statement slightly. Okay? Show how beauty can be found in distortion. How about just how beauty can be found in unlikely places, or I don't know.
Okay.
Does it? You see what I mean?
Yeah, because it should change it.
Yeah. Because if we're not gonna follow through with that, with the distortion, then it detracts from your organization development score, knowledge and understanding, that kind of thing. So, okay. I'm not sure we need to. This paragraph is kind of a little unnecessary in that we do have evidence that Yoshimoto shows that Eriko is successful, but what we don't have is anything really talking about the struggles beforehand. She's almost not concerned with that, it seems like. Okay? So we don't have to necessarily highlight that fact. The struggles that she goes through, I think, is spot on. I think that this is a bit of a misrepresentation, because I don't think she's eradicating the memories of her wife. It's almost like she's honoring the memory of her wife by becoming a woman, because she's like, I'll never love another woman, so I'm going to become one, right? Does that make sense? And the way she tells the story to Mikage certainly suggests that she hasn't that she cherishes those memories. It's not that she's trying to erase them. Here, instead of transfigured, maybe transformed.
Okay.
It has a more positive connotation. This quote is a little long for what you were essentially highlighting, which is how or actually, if you would, put these words in quotes: sparkle, marvelous, and cheerful. Because I'd already did. I kind of overlooked those. And what we want to continue to highlight is that it is Yoshimoto who highlights what it is that how beautiful Eriko is through Mikage. Does that make sense?
So we keep talking about that more?
Well, not necessarily talking about it more, but that it's Yoshimoto who is,
Behind it.
yes, that's emphasizing this, who's showing this beauty in what would seem to be an unlikely place.
How you doing,
Again, kind of a long quote for if you want to emphasize how sad she was or depressed, maybe steeped in a sadness so great I could barely cry.
Okay. Let's cut that down.
Yeah, cut that down. And by giving yourself some room, by cutting down some of the quotes, the length of some of the quotes, you can then spend a little more time emphasizing how, again, in an unlikely place, the death of her grandmother, she finds beauty. I mean, that's when Yuichi shows up, and I mean, he's described as pretty beautiful, I guess. You know what I mean? You could, it's not much of a stretch. I think you could say that. You know, the way he's beaming light. I mean, he's got a lot of the same kind of radiant characteristics that Eriko has when she first opens the door and sees him. You know what I mean? And in that way, you are emphasizing your appreciation of the author's choices. You are following and developing your thesis about how beauty can be found in
Unlikely places or like surprising places.
Sure.
So if I change that, will that like boost my score a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And especially by following that then and making some of these other edits that I've discussed. Okay? Like again, this paragraph, we can lose this paragraph. That's going to give you some more room to focus on essentially beauty, unlikely place in Eriko, right? And beauty in unlikely place, perhaps death.
Right. So
Death in Yuichi.
this paragraph?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would cut it and move it to another document. I never delete anything.
Right.
You know, just you never know.
Okay.
Might come in handy somewhere, but
Sure.
for now, I think you could lose it there. In fact, my suggestion is to make a copy of this document so that you have your original,
Okay.
and then,
Edit off of it.
yeah, exactly. Okay? Cool. I'm going to stop recording.
So is this due Friday, like in the beginning of the day?
This will be due at 3.
Okay.
The Naruto will be due at the beginning.
Okay.